Welcome back to another episode of Hobby Time in the Murder Basement, where this week I sit down and talk with fellow Twitch streamer Reiner72. We have an awesome conversation. Stick around.
Here we're gonna do it right now. This is the line. I'm sitting here in the murder basement with someone who I once thought was from Australia because all they were painting was Judgement models, and then I hop on their Twitch stream and I realize it's just a dude from Kansas City. Reiner72, thank you so much for joining me in the murder basement. How you doing today, buddy?
How's it going, Heath? Yeah, I can't even do a good Australian accent to save my life, so I'm not even gonna try. It'd be terrible, be atrocious.
That's been the funny thing about Twitch and like being able to like meet these people that all I've seen is like photos of their work, and especially when you use pseudonyms and things of that nature where you don't get any like idea who the person is on the other side. It's been really funny, like meeting people on, online now. It cracks
me. Trust me. Like before this, I've been I don't like having my picture taken. Even today, I don't like having my picture taken, which is weird because I'm on film. There's like some sort of cognitive disassociation here. I don't know what it is. I'm just like, I don't like. For some reason, I feel put on the spot. But if I'm on film, it's not so big of a deal. So, it's very strange, and it's funny too. You mentioned Australians. A lot of the people I first met when I started streaming were Australians, because I started streaming because I was up at like 3 a.m. and I'd be like, yeah, I'm just because I'm a very terrible insomniac. I've seen a specialist. It's not getting any better. I just deal with it. Yeah. And then I have a horrible work life relationship with IT, because if you work IT, you understand, like it just doesn't matter. You're on 24/7. So I'd be up at like 3 or 4 in the morning, like I can't sleep. I'm gonna paint. That's how I learned how to paint a lot of times. And I started streaming, and like all these Australians would tune in. They're like, "Hey, what's going on?" They'd expect an Australian too because of the time of day. I'm like, "No, it's like 4 in the morning, guys. What's happening?"
That's not unlike how I started on Twitch. I was doing it super late night because I was embarrassed, because I was just using a cell phone to do like my first strings. Like I just didn't have the setup. I was very unsure of what I was doing, and all of a sudden a bunch of like Australian viewers started showing up, and it was great because like I had a friendly community who just thought it was hilarious that I was like, they're like, "You're doing this on a cell phone? Like, what are you doing?" But they had like a really good sense of humor about it, so it like was the right amount of encouragement.
It's interesting too. I've known some other people who've kind of gotten into it via cell phone as well, because I remember some of the people I met on Instagram, like Painting to Scale. When she first started, she was doing Instagram streams just through her cell phone, just her painting orcs and stuff. Wow. And then eventually she's like, well, I want to start doing it on Twitch at some point, because she met me, she met Pending Duff and a number of other streamers. She's like, well, I'll eventually get my setup and just put it together, and she did. Now she streams, so it's like, it's great. She just got started doing it that way and built from there.
That's awesome. I will have to check her out. I'm trying to just like absorb all of these people, because it's so weird. Like the algorithm only shows you like kind of what it thinks you want, and so like it only like show you the same 5 guys over and over again, same on YouTube, and I'm realizing how vast the streamer ocean is. And like I was messaging back and forth with Spiky Bits the other day. He's my white whale. One of these days I'll get Spiky Bits. And he was just like, damn, dude, one of these days you're going to run out of people to talk to. I was like, nah, man, that is not going to happen. Like there is more people in the hobby every single day that are doing cool things that I want to know about. Like this is awesome. This is the time to be researching people.
And even if you ran through everybody in 6 months, if you went back to the same list of people in 6 months, they'd have a completely different story to tell.
Oh yeah, like MinMax Minis, her and I, when we first did our interview, just friends. She was not on Twitch, and her and I got on Twitch at the exact same time, basically. And she has a completely different story now. And like, it's like, I'm so excited to actually talk to her in person about it again, because yeah, Twitch is this amazing tool that it's going to be like the new battlegrounds for content creation. Like, I've heard people say if YouTube ever wanted to flex their muscles, they could give Twitch a run for their money. But I just don't think Google is that perceptive of what they have as far as like, you know, the reasons why Twitch works and how Google could, you know, add value to that. I don't think they'll ever do it.
Big. But in our sector, in this kind of like craft and hobby community, I don't know if YouTube necessarily capitalizes on it as much as they could. And I don't think Twitch necessarily does either, but I think they're a little bit more responsive to it, because I know there are members of the community that are in the makers and crafters and the art communities that are in Twitch and advocating for us, at least to some extent, for what they can, even though we are a small kind of wedge of that community. It's surprising. You look at some of the numbers, you're like, holy crap, Twitch is enormous. And then you look at our numbers, it's like, well, I mean, they're still loyal. That's the crazy thing. It's you see the same people month after month coming back and asking questions, getting involved, which is really cool. But, you know, it's not the huge slice of pie that Twitch really, you know, it's like, oh man, we wish this was way bigger. So do we.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like when I'm talking, like, you know, Adam from Tabletop Minions, like I was just looking at him. He's painting Necrons as we are.
Oh man, I'm so glad he's on Twitch now. It's really cool getting a chance to see him live.
Absolutely. And like this is where like the real, like, this is going to be the Civil War line, where because when Twitch decides that he can't do YouTube anymore, his like every other Sunday show, he's going to have to decide between the two, and that's going to be fascinating. Like
that's a big one. That's a big
it's going to be huge. But like he's pulling like 100 people, like on a slow night, he's pulling 100
easy
people.
Which is insane. Those are awesome numbers.
For us hobbyists, like the wargaming community, miniature painting community, it's crazy. You know, when you see like gamers that are like complaining about like having, you know, they're like, you know, we only had like 1,000 people on the stream. I was like, that's incredible. And they're like, it's not that much for like, if you want to make good money on Twitch. And I'm like, see, I think you guys are looking at it wrong. Like the community, and especially like once you have the people that show up every single time, the loyal fans, like what you said, that's unbelievable. That's the stuff that like, you know, one of your mods, the little bird that told me about your push for being a partner, Anzig, like he popped up in one of my streams one day, and now this is a guy that I'm like, I feel like I've known him my entire life. It's awesome. That is unbelievable, and that's something that, you know, I couldn't have had without Twitch.
And there are people that have been in my stream since almost day one. I literally still talk to my number 2 and number 4 followers. My number 1 follower is my wife. All right, so, and it's insane. I've gotten a chance to meet them multiple times. I'm excited to meet them again too in the future.
That's so
and
cool.
They're out of Canada. That's the best part. Like, I mean, I get to meet people from all over, and I get to interact with them.
You know, I think that is one of the cooler things about the miniature hobby, you know, with all the conventions and stuff, RIP, all of them this year. It's cool seeing how far people will go to be around their community. And you know, musicians, like you have music fans that go to concerts, you know, you have like the people in bands who go to like the guitar conventions and stuff, you know, but like it doesn't have the same sort of like fever pitch that Adepticon has. Like, you know, even in the smaller zone of like the Warfare Weekend, seeing all these people play War Machine and Hordes, just like going like ham, like it's like their swan song. They're like, we gotta like send this thing out, or whatever we're gonna do right now is going to dictate the future of this game. Like that is unbelievable to see, and that energy is so infectious.
And people are already at that convention, because Warfare Weekend was really exciting for me. I got to go because Judgement was there, and I'm like, well, I got to go for Judgement because that's my thing right now, obviously. And you know, like I met Gonzo And he's been a fan of mine for a while, and we've been talking for a while. I love those guys over at More Than Dice, him and Kathy, everybody, and that's been really cool. So got to go meet him. I got to go meet a whole bunch of other people, some old friends that I'd met at Adepticon and stuff. And people are excited about what about next year? Well, rip, 2020 obviously, but they wanted it to happen again. They were already like, this is already awesome. Like the first day, like, we want this to happen next year. So how do we, keep supporting it and making sure it happened? And then obviously with the news recently, everybody's scrambling to make sure, hey, how do we make sure our conventions survive until next year? Because we want a place to go.
Absolutely.
Like, we don't want them to go absolutely bust. So what do we do? Like, what does it take as a community? Which is really cool, because, yeah, I think there are really tight-knit communities, but it's really rare to see them. And especially in kind of this one, where it's traditionally been kind of seen as quote-unquote beardy, toxic, etc., hard to enter. And even I've had those thoughts and had those experiences in the past. So it's like, it's a tough one to crack, and I'm really surprised at where I'm at and what I'm seeing. So overall, I'm pretty excited and positive about it, and I try to maintain that, because otherwise I'd go crazy.
Yeah, if you're not laughing, you're crying, sort of thing. Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah. So it's really nuts. I never thought I'd take on an art aspect of this hobby either. I always thought it'd be kind of coming from a gaming aspect, but this just kind of landslided this way.
So how did miniature painting start? Like, were you doing art before miniature painting, or
No.
did one insomniac night you were scrolling YouTube and you stumbled on a hobby cheating video and were like, holy shit, what is this?
So this is probably a tired story for a lot of people, but yeah, I've been a tabletop gamer for a long time, since like I was a teenager. So I played video games obviously, and then I fell into D&D and Magic the Gathering for a while, but I really stuck with D&D and tabletop games like that. Love World of Darkness to this day. I still try to play. I love Hunter the Reckoning, funny enough. Just, I love being the underdog, and I love fighting, oh my god, terror stuff. I love horror stories. So
Nice.
that's really cool. Well, so when I met my wife, I got her interested in D&D. She's a nerd, and she does fiber arts now. She learned how to do fiber arts over the same period that I learned how to paint, which now she does that professionally, crazy enough. So she's a librarian, but she's also a professional fiber artist, and she writes for the magazines. It's really crazy, and I'm super proud of her. So in the meantime, she's like, hey, cool, and we'd go out to the game store and we'd see these Warhammer minis, and she's like, I really like the orcs. These look awesome. She likes steampunk, diesel punk stuff, kind of weird stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, I really like Warhammer. I like all the chaos stuff, but, I'm no artist. Well, we end up buying each other some Warhammer crap just based on this discussion without knowing each. So we have this kind of reverse gift of the Magi, and she immediately goes, well, now you got to paint the crap. Like, you're not just going to not paint the stuff. I'm like, okay. And so she gave me my first few lessons, and that's kind of where it started. So it has been a lot of insomnia nights where I've just been up kind of watching YouTube videos, reading things, looking over crap, and really Twitch has just hyper accelerated that, because not only am I finding people on Twitch, I'm finding people on YouTube, I'm finding people on Instagram, I'm finding people on Facebook, I'm finding all of these new resources, because as I talk to more people, I meet more people. It's just it's multiplicative, and it's really crazy. So like, and especially putting myself on the spot, I kind of like that little bit of pressure, which is weird for some reason. Like, crowds don't put much pressure on me, but that performance to just like, don't screw this up right now, because you're gonna have to do it again. We'll put just enough pressure on me to go do it, and then when I do it and it's screwed up, I'm like, well, no big deal, I'll just do it again.
Yeah. Well, and like, that's I think the secret ingredient of every like healthy hobbyist is realizing that, like, screw it, just do it again. You literally can't ruin these things, and that is one of like, yeah. And I've watched so many people be like, I don't want to tackle this one yet, just in case I mess it up. I'm like, what are you doing, painting with gravel? Like what? How could you mess it up? Like, this is
it's
like,
really
it's
hard
not rocket science. Yeah.
So many times have I told people that it's just like, you know what, you're gonna screw up. You're gonna screw up so many times, and the biggest thing is just knowing how to pick yourself back up and going, how do I fix this? Because that's a whole other skill in itself, is repairing something that's gotten screwed up. How do you fix this? Well, do you have to take it back to, do I need to strip the paint off? Can I just hit it with some primer and then go back into it? Can I just turn that into like a scratch on armor or something like that? That's really important, especially when you play games too, right? Things get damaged. So I really encourage that. It's like, don't get frustrated, just figure out how to make it into something better.
Well, and I have seen like really lousy paint jobs, like where like you could tell that they put in very little effort into it, and on at table length, it looks great. And you're
Hmm.
playing against somebody, it's like this narrative, and you're just like, wow, that's amazing. Like, take down my like weird elitist bullshit where like I want to paint for like like competition all the time. Like this dude got it done in a weekend and has a painted army. It looks great, and I don't have a painted army. Like I need to stop throwing shade and just like start like living the truth
Right.
that like these people are just doing it and having fun with it, and like that you can always go back and add. Like it doesn't have to be perfect the first time through.
No, and I'd never get down on someone, especially when they put effort into it and
Yeah.
planning and things like that, because you could be a terrible painter, and that's okay. You put effort into it, and did you have a great time? Then hey, you won. You got value out of your hobby, right? I mean,
Right.
that's really all it comes down to. But there's other things to look at too. Like maybe you can't paint one single miniature to like super stellar quality, but if you can paint like 100 miniatures, composition counts for a whole lot. Because like you said, a fully painted army looks freaking awesome.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
like that's something to be celebrated.
I've seen like like dioramas of like the Trapped Under Plastic guys were talking about, like this Hell one, and if you go and look at the photos of it, like those miniatures that they are not painted well. Like that is like
Oh
barely
my
any
god.
effort put into it, but the composition of it is
I'm not laughing at the
incredible.
picture painting, but I've got I've got a great example of this because my wife pointed this out to me because obviously she tries to expose me to things because she's a little influencer. She got me to Twitch stream too, so we've gone to art exhibits and things like that to look at
Sure.
art because now I'm not just looking at the paintings and going, this is a really cool painting or anything. I'm finding myself leaning in and saying like, oh, that's cool, the brushstroke adds a little bit of light here and that really highlights out this thing and like stuff like that.
Right.
Then I'm like, man, all of the animals in all of these paintings look so bizarre and freaky, like no matter how good the painting is. And then she's like, well, that's because they're focused on painting like the faces, like that's all
Yeah.
they practice for like decades, and they do this great job of making a portrait, and then the background is this just collage of like bizarre dreamscapes and human faced animals and stuff, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, now I see it everywhere, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my god,
Dude,
I see it, it's so insane.
the favorite part of like being exposed to art is when you start getting back to like the pre-Renaissance era art, and especially in that like high religious art where like they were not painting babies yet, they were just
Oh,
painting like
they're
portraits of
tiny
men.
people.
Yeah, and they're tiny,
Oh.
like Jesus is like a tiny adult in like Mary's arms. It's one of the best things I've ever seen.
Oh my god, it looks like he should be like a banker or something, like, are you like a financial advisor? What is going on here? He's like, well, I gotta watch out.
Oh my god,
Oh,
it's
it's insane. The
so
market's
funny.
unstable. I get it. I get it.
It's so funny, and like you can't, if you don't understand those things of like the aspect of learning art, like it's easy to be really turned off on the history of art, which is what I absolutely adore. Reiner, how long have you been painting now? Like
About 10 years now. So
10 years.
that's from
Okay.
start of getting into like Warhammer miniatures, up until what I'm doing now, which I try out all different sorts of things. Like I've got some Malifaux tucked away, but I haven't really played it. But I've painted a few pieces. I've got Judgement has become a big thing. I like Necromunda. Funny enough, I've fallen into that. I still have yet to play, but I've been painting it like mad, so I'm like totally into it.
Dude,
Um,
all that Necromunda terrain that's been coming out, like I get so excited when I see it. I'm just like, oh man, like don't
oh,
make me get another game.
I know, and I've been getting the Death Ray stuff and like loading out my table recently with like all this crazy MDF stuff that they're cutting. Oh, it looks so good, and I'm having
Yeah.
fun with terrain. Finally, I'm so bad about doing it. I'm like, oh, finally, get my table looking like not hot garbage. Maybe I don't know. So
So
we'll
10
see.
years is a pretty good
Yeah.
time to be painting though. Like,
Which is
you kind of
interesting. That's
like
my mid to late 20s when I started, and
okay.
like I kind of tooled around with a little bit of clay in high school. It's just like an art class sort of thing, but I never really got heavy into doing art. Like I did marching band, I did like other things like academic stuff. Did quiz bowl, which was fun. So
Nice.
nothing like the short fat kid just kind of going around like answering trivia questions. That was my thing. So I'm like, all right.
I think
I'm
we would
here.
have got along just fine because
Yeah.
like I did play football, but it was my real passion was drama. I am a horrible actor because like I've got like the Jimmy Fallon effect where I can't stop like looking and smiling. So like
Mhm.
you have to put me in the background. Give me like
Yeah.
2 lines.
I was horribly unathletic, so I was just like, you know what, marching band is about as athletic as I can get. Like, I'll march
Yeah.
around for a while. That I can do. Like, no,
I,
shooting a basket, no.
I wanted to do marching band, but I got kicked out of band in 8th grade for not being able to read music. I was first chair clarinet, and I couldn't read music. I just did it by ear and like watched everybody else play it and like just played along. And I practiced a lot because I knew I sucked at it. And the teacher was like, play an A, and I was like, I don't know what that is. And that was a real problem. And after that, it was punk rock for the rest of my life because like the teacher ruined music for me. And so after that, it was just like, fuck the man, I'm gonna do this on my own.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting how I got into music because I don't think I was really exposed to music a whole lot until like high school, and then like I found out like I had an enrichment class, like an advanced kind of thing, like I do when I was a bit younger. So we go to a different class, like some of the kids, and we do some other stuff. And one of the things that we did was like a music study from like the 60s and the 70s and stuff. And I got exposed to some really cool stuff that I still enjoy to this day. And I went to my dad, and he had a lot of this stuff because he grew up with it. He went to Vietnam and things like that. So he was a teenager and stuff around that same time.
Sure.
And got a lot of really cool stuff out of that. And then I met my friends who played D&D when I was in high school, who were just outside of high school, so they were listening to like Korn and stuff and all this other things, and a lot of new metal, and then like some old heavy metal. Like I got exposed to like Sepultura and like all this old stuff, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. So I still haven't appreciated. I love Monster Magnet, and it came from that era, and I'm just like this unabashed fan of theirs. And people are like, who the heck is that? I'm like, doesn't matter. I love the music. Doesn't matter.
Nobody gives Monster Magnet the credit because Space Lord was their like big hit, and like, but they were like
there's so much
stoner
other
metal heroes like for like 10 years before anybody actually figured out who the hell they were. It's like same with like Fu Manchu and Kias or Caius or whatever. Like all that like high desert stoner rock.
I didn't know about Caius until Queens of the Stone Age, and then my buddy's like, there was something else before that. I'm like, no, and then he exposed me to that. Yeah, so it's crazy. Especially when I got into like Clutch and stuff. Like I love Clutch to this day. I still try to go. I'm so disappointed. I missed like 3 concerts this year too, on top of cons and stuff. And one of them was a Clutch concert.
Oh man,
I'm roiling over that. But Safety First, I'm not mad about that. I'm just like, it's a bummer. That's all it is.
Clutch has been one of those bands that I've never got a chance to see live, but they've been like a big part of the rotation in our household. Like, I imagine that you and I are about the same age, and that like there's that like era of late 90s, early 2000s like rock that like it's still like fairly revolutionary in comparison to everything else that's going on. And Clutch was one of those guys that like was there. Like the Melvins were another one for me that you're just like, how the hell did these things come out of this era? Because like when everything was Korn and Rob Zombie, like Clutch is like singing poetry and doing like throwback like stoner metal and like it was great. And they still like, I think Blast Tyrant is one of those albums that I'll always go back to. You're just like, how the hell did they do this? This is a magical album. Like it is poetry in motion. It blows me away.
And that's the best part too. Like they've been consistent too. Like I love their self-titled album. What was that, like 95, 96? And then Blast Tyrant was 2004. I'm like, holy crap, they're still holding up. And then I love Psychic Warfare. That album is also good, and that was I think it's 2016 or something like that, 2015.
Right.
Love it. I was just like, wow, they've just been so good over the years, and it just continues to be good. So I'm really, really happy whenever I hear new Clutch coming out. I'm like, oh, awesome, I gotta check it out.
It's that's been one of my favorite parts about meeting all of the miniature painters is that like all of us kind of like have very similar music tastes, and like I don't know why that is. Like it just is the way it is. I don't know. I'm not complaining because like I'm blown away by like meeting other people. Like the fact that you said Sepultura as a band, you know, is like one of those like I can't remember the last time a stranger has uttered the word Sepultura in my presence and me not like yell war for territory in their face just because it's just so fun and so good and so intense.
Oh my
You know,
god!
like,
I just remember like that was another thing. Like my dad was odd. He encouraged me in weird ways, and one of the things that we shared was we went and saw the Mortal Kombat movie. So we loved the soundtrack. So he got the soundtrack for me, and that introduced me to a ton of bands that I still love. I love Fear Factory too.
dude.
So I've gone to see a bunch of their concerts since then. But like listening to those albums just exposed me to like it was interesting because it was like metal. There was like electronica. There's all these different bands on there
All the
that didn't get
industrial stuff.
they didn't get discovered
Yeah.
until like a couple of years after that. It was really
Dude.
nuts.
St. Louis locals, Gravity Kills had that one track that isn't on their album. It's only on the Mortal Kombat
Right.
soundtrack, and it's like,
It's so
God damn,
good.
this song is excellent.
That was
And you know,
guilty. Oh
yeah,
man.
yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I love that one.
It's so funny, like that. These are the conversations that I have on Twitch too with people.
Right.
Back when we were listening to music on Twitch, which I hope someday we get to go back to those days of listening to whatever the fuck we want to on Twitch. It seems it seems like Duff is like going for he's like, I've been doing this for 3 years. They do this every summer, you know, like I'm not gonna stop listening to Cannibal Corpse. And I'm like, okay, Duff, that's awesome. I'll maybe follow your example, but also like I'm trying to play really good right now because I found this new home and I don't want to ruin it for myself this early on. Like at least let me get a couple years down the line before I shit the bed, you know?
Yeah, and as much as I want to listen, because I that was one of the things I was known for on my stream is we love talking about music because that's a big inspiration for me. Probably my two other big inspirations for how I paint, music and manga, which is kind of a weird thing, but that's why I love JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It's music and manga too, so like, hey, there you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm also of the mind like, you know what? If I can't listen to stuff, that's fine. I'll find something I can listen to because there's all sorts of great creators out there. People who are either doing things for free and just throwing it out there. People who are doing things under like certain other licenses, trying to make their own business, and there's ways for you to support them. That's awesome too because I know a lot of people are trying to figure out like service models, like small.
Sure.
You know, small people, small businesses, you know, 1 or 2 people at a time. Like, how do I get my stuff out there and still monetize it? So I try to support them that way. So I've been finding things on YouTube where they're like, yeah, you can stream this. Or, you know, people like you who make music and really want it to get out there. And like, yeah, you can use this. Or, you know, I've got pay for music as well, stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm also of the same mind. I'm trying to keep it above the, you know, I'm trying to play good. So like, even the software and stuff I use, I want to make sure that it's all licensed and proper, so nobody comes along and says, "Hey, you made that video using this. You can't do that."
Right.
Yeah. Coming from a software guy, like I know about that sort of stuff. It's really fun watching a shop. You know, they come up on their licenses and then they come marching in. They're like, "Wow, really? You're supposed to have 5 licenses, not 10." So this is really gonna hurt, guys.
Yeah, they always hit like way harder afterwards. And like I used to be of the like mind frame of like it's better to, you know, beg for forgiveness than ask for permission until like money's involved, and then it's just like you better just do it right.
Yeah, whatever they have you sign is not in your favor when you do that, and they make sure of it.
Yeah. So you mentioned music and manga. Did you watch the new Sturgill Simpson Sound and Fury on Netflix?
Yes, I love it. My wife and I both love it. Again, another concert.
I know, right? Dude, the tickets here in St. Louis were so expensive that I was just like, you know what? I think I'll just like I'll just watch it again on Netflix and I'll have a nice night.
Yeah, one of my friends that I war game with, I introduced him to it and he showed it to his dad, and his dad was really in love with it. So he's like, we got to go see it because they're playing in KC. So he asked me, and I'm like, well, my wife enjoys it, but she's gonna stay home. Like, I'll totally go. And then it's like, oh, the whole thing went down. I'm like, oh, so I miss Sturgill, I miss Clutch, and I miss Monster Magnet was playing a Defcon weekend in Chicago, so I was gonna go one night.
Whoa! Oh, that would have been great. Yeah.
See, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, it's
I'm not gonna
okay.
cry
So-
because people have come out a lot worse from this, but it's just like it's a bummer. And the only thing that I'm really bummed about is I'm just hoping the venues are okay because I know they're struggling really bad. So there's people just trying to stay working.
I don't know how. There are certain aspects of this country that are going to have like a lot of problems, and like venues, small like restaurants and stuff like that that don't have like the infrastructure to do online ordering very easily, and the it's like the game stores that haven't that are set up to own, like they make all their money when they have people in playing games,
Right.
like there's going to be some things that I will miss when they're gone, and I don't know how to protect them. I don't know how to support them any more than I already do. It's just like that is one of the most confusing aspects of post-pandemic world, is like it's going to be a whole new economy by the time it's done, and it's why I find it really interesting that Games Workshop is pushing 9th edition right now. Like, it's like the best and the worst time to push a whole new edition of a game. And, at least it's like, it really should actually only be 8.5 because they didn't change that much of how the gameplay actually is. Because, like, I was like expecting it to be like a dramatic revamp, and it wasn't. And so like I'm kind of like lukewarm on it at this point.
Yeah.
But like, like it seems a little foolhardy to throw like a thing that encourages you to hang out with people in places where you can't social distance properly.
Right.
I don't want to call it tone deaf, but it feels a little tone deaf.
Yeah, and it sucks too because it almost feels like they know it, and they're just like, oh my god, we spent all this money, we can't stop what we're doing. So how do we reframe this to be better accepted? But how? Like, what is a good answer? Well, the game aspect's really cut off right now because I'm not gaming with anybody, unfortunately.
No.
Like, my wife is here, but when we're together, we're also usually taking care of our kid as well. So there's other things going on in our life that kind of keeps us from necessarily investing a whole lot of time. Now I get my hobby time, but and I think that's what they're trying to focus on. But again, people are also just concerned about jobs and security. So it's really tough. So I kind of agree. I feel like they just like they had everything kind of going, and then this whole thing hit, and they had no idea on how to stop it. And they're just kind of like, okay, well, we just got to kind of play it by ear, which unfortunately is how a lot of businesses are just having to take it. Is like we're just learning and adapting as we can, and trying to keep people safe.
At least like in GW's like defense, like everybody's hobbying right now, like getting I bought an Indominus box. I didn't think I was going to get one, and then I saw that I could get a pre-order on one, and I was like, okay, well, I'm just doing it. It's like I want those Necrons. Like, I don't really care about Space Marines. I don't really care about playing the game. Like, but I want those killer robots. Like, I just they were my first army I started collecting, and when I saw them, I was like, oh, they're getting new hotness. Okay.
Right. And that's the thing that excites me nowadays, just because 90% of my hobby is now hobby instead of, well, I should say modeling and painting and not necessarily gaming. I try to game, but it's just rare, unfortunately, especially with kid in life, and streaming honestly takes a lot of my time too. I love doing it, but it eats into my ability to game. Or hobby as well to myself. But like GW's rolling out some products, or other companies trying to roll out products, but they're also trying to make sure that A, they're keeping their guys working but also safe, and then B, like actually able to get stuff places. It's tough right now. So like even the Judgement guys that had a couple of releases that were held up by this whole thing just because it hit at the wrong time. They were already on the way. And then everything crashed, and they're like, okay, well, how do we keep things going, but also make it a little bit better for everybody? So they're also like, hey, we managed to cut the cost a little bit, thankfully. So hope that helps.
Yeah,
but, do what you can, but stay safe.
The Judgement thing is so weird because like I think we both got held up on the Zim model. It didn't happen for a really long time. Like I actually forgot about it, and then one day I was just like, I'm gonna message Andrew, just be like, hey, like no pressure, but like I just realized that I haven't heard any word on this yet. I was just kind of wanting an update. He's like, yeah, no, it's cool, no worries. But yeah, like it's so interesting, you know, for especially for a small company like Judgment. Like they not only like have like razor thin margins anyway, but they just were like, you know what, we want more people in the United States to have our product. We want more people to play this game. We want to like bust through, because like for the quality of the sculpts, I don't think $50 per model is like too much for a company like that. I thought that was actually pretty reasonable, especially once you saw them. You're like, oh, these are unbelievable. You know, and then like they're now what, like 20% cheaper. That's awesome. That's
they went
cool.
from about, you know, $50 model to a $40 model. Some of them are a couple of dollars more just because of the size of the mini and the casting involved. But yeah, that has been a great thing, because I encourage people just to even look at Judgment. If you're not interested in the game, take a look at the sculpts, because they've got a crazy range. No two models are really alike. No. Which is kind of cool, and that's part of the setting. So that's what kind of drug me in, because I've got a thing for Minotaurs, so they've got some really awesome Minotaurs in the line.
Dude,
and I'm just like, well, I'm gonna keep painting it. So, but yeah, you're right, Zim. I got Isabel in, and that was one of the models that the studio wanted me to do for them. So I got her in, and I painted her, and I'm like, hey, Andrew, what's going on with Zim? Wasn't he coming? Because they even redesigned Zim. They put out the first design, and they're like, well, we're not quite happy with how he turned out, so let's put a little bit more work into him, and he came out fantastic. He's probably one of my top 3 models in the line right now. I really like him.
What's the horse guy?
Fazil.
Yeah, Fazil. That yes. I don't own that one, but I have a $10 credit for ordering Zim, and then the price changed. That I think I'm just gonna get Fazil, because I'm like, yeah, I guess I just need all the undead things.
Oh yeah, and there's more undead coming. If you checked out some of the stuff to come from the Judgment guys, the next one coming is Cradle, which is awesome. And this is why I love their line, because every model is so different. She is a female undead minotaur.
She's
what? Undead, but you know, before she was undead, she was a minotaur, and she's part of the backstory with Donrakar. So all of these minis have like their stories that integrate and everything, and you know, it's really cool. And she's got like 2 axes. She's a shadow hunter, and all this other stuff. So there's a 3rd undead hero coming, and then after that, another goblin.
So I love the goblins too. I think they're awesome. I just like. When you see the underdog like them like doing what they do, it's thrilling. And like I didn't know, like I knew the models from Judgment. Like I wanted Astariel, like I just like, this model's great, and I was like, but I'm, you know, $50 for a game that I'm never gonna play, you know. And then I took a class at Warfare Weekend and got the model, and as I'm sitting there like painting it, and I was like, oh, I no longer want to paint 28 to 30 mil models. Like I want to paint 54 or bigger. Like this is so much more fun. It's so much easier on my eyes. Like
oh my god, the scale thing is so big. I agree, because I didn't get into 54 millimeter until Judgment. This was brand new for me. So I met Andrew in person at Adepticon in 2018. Yes, so that's right. And I was like, hey, cool, these models are awesome. And I ended up picking out Zarin, the Necromancer, and Marcus, the Knight. And
Marcus is awesome looking.
And then he's all like, hey, man, you seem to really like these. Why don't you try out this Minotaur? And I'm like, whoa, wow, really cool. So he gave me a copy of Thorgar to paint on my stream. And I'm like, that's really cool of you, man. Thank you so much. Ended up painting him and had a complete blast. Gave him away to a viewer. They really enjoyed that. And then I'm just like, well, I got to paint the rest of this stuff. And then I went all in. So I went on their Wave 2 Kickstarter, which it's very, 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 very rare that I go in on Kickstarters. I'm just usually just like, I just want to buy something if I can get it available. I'm not really into like limited edition stuff anymore or anything like that. Just like, if I can get it, it's cool, awesome. If not, I'm not too worried about it. Maybe someday. You never know.
It's man, Kickstarters is one of those drugs that I tried to stay away from it, and then like I don't know, like through June and July, have backed more Kickstarters than I think I have in years. And like, I was looking at my credit card statement. I was like, ugh, like, what am I doing? But like, I needed a crokinole board for some reason. You know, I was like, it's only $100. Like, you know, that's.
Yeah, no, I get it. I've been trying to spread out my purchases because I'm looking at like GW stuff because I've also been collecting like the Blackstone Fortress minis because they look gorgeous. They're so
very
good.
Cool.
And I haven't really gotten started on it, painting them, but I love the sculpts. I've done just like a handful of them. I can't wait to do some more. Plus the whole fact that they've got plastic Renegades and Heretics has me super excited. Just love all things chaos. Just like come on Codex Renegades, come on,
dude. The whole like the floaty brain guys in the core set of them, I can't remember their names. They are so cool looking, and I'm like I bought Blackstone Fortress as well because again chaos, it's great, but also I was just like I wanted a game kind of like Hero Quest, but not like Hero Quest, and like I was like some sci-fi stuff, and I like 40K's aesthetic. This will be great. Like that game is actually very good. Like I wish my friends were more into playing it, but they all just want to pay 2,000 point games, and I'm just like, come on, let's do something other than like waste 4 hours in a day. We can like seriously, if we want to be mad at each other, we can do it other ways.
When this pandemic's over, I'm down for a game of Blackstone.
Hell yeah. I wish that there was something that like one of the best parts about Judgment is that you could do like wartable.com or whatever, and Vassal, like you can play it online for free, and that's awesome. Like the fact that all the rules, all the stats are free, that is some like that's something that I'm not used to. And then I found a game called Conquest: The Last Argument of Kings. Have you ever seen or played any of that?
Yeah, I'm familiar with that with Orcrist. He's been introducing me to it, and I saw a bit of it at last Adepticon. He drugged me over to see their table, and it's got some really interesting motifs and like aesthetic to it. It's different. Like it's not what you expect. You're like, oh, cool, fantasy setting. That's neat. Let me take a look. And then you're like, this isn't quite right. Like something's off. And then it's like, wait, hold on. What's going on in this world? That's really weird.
Yeah, I really like it. I like the game a lot. The models are like 37 mil. So they're just big enough to like, it makes it easier to paint. But like, all of those rules are free as well. Like all the stats, literally everything you need to play the game is on Tabletop Simulator right now. And that's like stuff that I just love. I absolutely love these like small scrappy companies just being like, you know what? Like we want we want this in people's hands. The altruistic nature of it is just like something that, I can't deny. I love it.
Well, not only is it altruistic, it just makes sense at this point. Like why bother trying to, when you're a small company, why bother trying to make print materials that, somebody buys once, and then you may be sitting on a stock of stuff that you just can't move and might go out of date or something like that, especially with Judgment. Judgment's a very living game. Like they're putting out patches every 3 months. And saying, okay, it's out here for free. There's some print on demand options, but basically you can just go onto their site and print off everything. In fact, they give you like little standees and stuff if you want to proxy things in or try things out with your friends. You don't need to pay a dime to try the game. They just want to sell the models.
Yeah.
But the game helps sell the models. Like if you like the game, you want the models. If you like painting them, you want the models, etc. It all goes back to that, which makes sense to me. Again, with Conquest, same thing. Like, you're a small company. Why bother trying to push paper, especially when everybody's got a phone, everybody's got a tablet, everybody's got some sort of digital media, or at least a friend with something. So it's pretty ubiquitous at this point. It's not too hard to get a hold of some sort of access. As a small company, that's the way I'd lean too. It's just like, focus on selling that as a product. And then, if the demand's there at some point, like, hey, we've got 10 million people playing it, maybe you can buy a copy of it too, just to have a nice, neat copy of it, and it's got some extras, like GW does. But even GW is trying to dip themselves back into the digital world a bit. However that may shake out. We'll see how it goes. I don't know how their business model will work on this whole 9th edition release, but I'm at least excited to see them trying a little harder this time.
It's going to be really funny because like it's either going to be totally awesome and work and everybody's going to do it, or it's going to suck. Everybody's still going to do it, but Battlescribe is going to get like 10,000 new people using it because like they're like, oh, this is how I want to like work in this. And like Battlescribe, for better or for worse, like fixes a lot of problems I have with GW's model. Like
Right.
the fact that like, especially when you're building a list and it compiles everything down and like, it just makes it so much more pleasant to actually play a big game. Like it's one thing doing a small game, but when you got 2,000 points on a table, you need something like Battle Scribe. You need
Yes.
something that cuts down all the noise, you know.
I think that's the biggest problem, and that even has come up with like the Judgment rules. Like the rule books aren't the best format, and they've addressed that. They've said, hey, we're coming out with a whole new format because we've heard you. Like it's hard to look up stuff. And then
it's
on the same side,
page
right.
23 in Judgment is when they actually tell you how to play Judgment. It's
right.
up until that point is like all terms.
Yeah,
I'm like, guys, you guys wrote it backwards.
Yep.
Like,
yeah, I
agree.
agree. That's been one of the things. It's like it seems odd because you're going over like all the details before you actually just say, hey, you know, you need to start the game. Like, oh, okay.
right.
Like, well, I'm glad you know how to, you know, do a push maneuver, but you know, like
Right.
I don't even know how to set up the board yet. Because I agree, and you know, Andrew and Jeff try, but it's just one of the things, and they're evolving. But that's the thing I find with Warhammer too. Like, there's so many rules that like, okay, you have to get this book, and this book. So knowing which books they're in is one issue. And then it's like, well, I've got all of these rules that I don't care about in these books. What I really need is like a digital device that says, okay, I need everything tagged Chaos Marines and Alpha Legion. Cool, done. And that's, hey, there's all the units available, and I want to filter all these units out because I'm not using them. And this is what I need. These are the data slates I need. You know, it'd be really cool if like they would do the same thing to do with AOS with the cards and stuff.
Right.
I want those cards so bad. Do you know how bad I want those?
Dude,
because that's a print material, but
yeah,
you know, I'd love that, but hey,
they're so helpful. I mean, when they did them in for Apocalypse, I was like, oh, we might be getting them for regular 40K. We did not get them for regular 40K.
Because that's what I want. It's like I want a way to just have the data slates that I care about and say, okay, I have 7 units that are composed of like 5 different data slates. I just want those 5 data slates, and then like the rule book that I can look through for like generic terms. That's all I need. But we'll see how they do. I mean, I'm sure it'll be better than what we've seen in the last few years, because the last good thing I saw from them digitally was the 6th edition Psychic Tracker, which I don't know if anybody else remembers. I remember it just because I played Demons, and it's impossible to play Demons without like pencil and paper. Like, okay, I've got 27 different things I need to do this psychic round. It got crazy in 6th and 7th edition, which is, oh my god, yeah, it was just so much to track. And they had a digital app, and it was kind of neat because it'd be like, okay, you've got all these units, neat, and they've got this many things that you need to do, and then it would track you as you went through them, and then, hey, I'm done. Like, cool, that saves me a whole lot of hassle, but it just died. It's gone. Once the edition was done, they're like, whatever, it's gone.
Yeah,
it's done.
We don't need this. We don't need to practice this anymore.
Yeah.
But you know, like I think that it felt like they were learning it when they did like the Imperial Knights had like their cards, which like made me really excited. It was actually one of the reasons why I bought into a knight army, not just because like it's a small model count and it's not a whole lot to actually keep track of. You know, you just have a couple dick stompers out in the field, and you're like, okay, like I know I may not always win, but like I have 3 models, turns go fast, we can be done with this.
It's kaiju battles.
Fun. Yeah, kaiju battle.
Let's go fight our big monsters against our giant robots. It's gonna be awesome.
So, before we were chatting, you mentioned that you have some Gunpla hanging up on your soffit in your wall, and I'm just now starting to realize that like I've always loved giant mechs and I love giant models, but it feels like I'm being taken advantage of every time I buy like a big GW model, when for the same amount of money I can get 3 like really cool Gunpla that like I really only like doing the hobby aspect of these things for the most part. Like, it feels really weird when you like look at the value proposition between the two. Like, how did you get into Gunpla, and is it something that you still do?
Okay, this is a weird one. So I got into Gunpla right after I got out of college, and that's because I moved into one of the guys I went to college with, and one of my on and off roommates through college. We moved into this apartment, and I was like, hey, you You remember Gundam like back in high school and stuff? We're like, yeah, Gundam Wing, and we're like, it wasn't that great. Like we tried watching it again, and like, it didn't quite live up. And I'm like,
Yeah, it
you
doesn't
remember how
age well.
ridiculous G Gundam was? I'm like, oh, that was a terrible show with a whole bunch of terrible stereotypes. Some of the gunplay in it were really awesome. My buddy goes, you can buy those like toys and stuff, right? I'm like, don't you have to put those together? That's great. You know what? So like late one night, I probably had a bunch of Jack Daniels or something like that, and we're online and we're like, hey, we found one of these places. This was before Amazon started like selling a whole bunch of these, because now you can just go on Amazon and like, yeah, you got all the gunplay you want. It's either here or like a few other like retail. You can get what you need. But then it was like, oh my god, I found these from G Gundam. I'm totally building these. So I get them, but then me and my friend were just sitting in the basement. We found some wire snips like from the hardware store and a box cutter, and put these. They're still up here on my shelf now to this day, but we put them together, and I'm like, oh, that was fun. It's whatever. And we started watching like all sorts of different Gundam series and things like that, and we like things like Robotech. I remember when I was like three or four, I used to watch Voltron on TV.
Oh, sure.
It was like my favorite thing. I still loved it, and it was so great. And I remember all these old shows, so I got into like watching all sorts of giant mech stuff. Like Gurren Lagann came out at about that time too.
Gurren Lagann, so good.
I love ridiculous, over the top shonen and seinen stuff, but I also love like horror anime and manga. So that's been a big inspiration for like both what I paint and what I like to build and things.
Yeah.
So and then after that, so I started dating my wife, and for Christmas, she would get me kits, or she would tell my parents to get me kits off of Amazon and stuff like that. So I've slowly built up this horrifying collection of stuff that's precariously perched up here. But I didn't get into the painting aspect. I've only painted 2 of my Gunpla, and that was more recently. So the Buttress on Twitch actually kind of got me into doing it, because they had a painting competition, and she's got a really awesome stream and everything, very encouraging for people just to get in and the hobby, because I was like, I just do straight builds, and they're like, that's awesome. A lot of people do straight builds, some people do conversions and kits. I'm like, screw it, I'm gonna do a painted piece, just because I haven't done it. So I've been painting miniatures, and it's a completely different scale. It's a completely different skill, and all sorts of different things. So I learned a lot, and I had a really good time with that. So I've done 2 of those, and I don't know, I might do another one at some point. I'd like to do a kit bash. Especially with like some of the newer HG kits. So like the smaller, cheaper kits are really meant to be kind of intermixed nowadays, like the way they've built them, which is really cool, because I think that's the thing that gets me with Gunpla. I do the straight builds because I really appreciate the engineering that goes into the kits. It's insane.
Right.
Like these toy builders are really on their game. It's just nuts.
They're posable models that you don't need glue to make.
Right.
Like, how is that a thing? Like, and I'm looking at like GW, like their sculpts right now, the way that they're hiding seams and stuff is like magic, but also like I want more movable parts on my models. I want these to be more toys, and especially like when you see, painters like Chris Surrey, like literally every model that Chris Surrey like does, he chops them up and he like reposes them. And I'm just like, man, it would just be nice if they thought about, like the actual like customization aspect of models more. Like, how come Western culture and Japanese culture can't like have like a merging of the minds? I'd love to see Bandai actually do GW stuff in a way that like we could have like real, like,
interesting you say that, right? I mean, that's been a thing recently with their Space Marine kits. They've Warhammer started to like really get it big in Japan now, which is really cool to see, because I've met a lot of people from Japan and Korea now on Twitter who've been painting Warhammer, and they've got like a whole different style and all sorts of different interests, and I can tell like what they take from their culture and apply it to it, which is really cool. I like seeing that a lot. And the Playmo, like the plastic modeling and the Gunpla modeling communities are really descending on that. So they're bringing in those skills, which I always think is interesting. Like you mentioned earlier with Renaissance painting, we're bringing back a lot of techniques and things into play. We're like, oh, hey, you remember this from like 300 years ago? Bring that into our miniature painting. Same thing on this side. Like the guys that have been doing scale modeling for years, we have a lot of things to learn from them, and we're just bringing new things in. So these Gunpla fanatics, these Playmo fanatics, they're coming in and showing us a lot of new cool stuff. Like people are learning about the liner tools that they use, like the different liners, because They're just chemically different, so we're not used to using them. We're used to using like our acrylics and inks and things like that. And they're like, oh yeah, we've had these for years, but have you tried them on the minis yet? Not yet. Let's give it a shot.
Right. And like it feels like there's so much innovation happening on miniature side, and you're right, they are not new. Like
Right.
but like, on the miniature stuff actually has innovated, like acrylic paints in ways that like, scale modelers haven't had. So like there needs to be like a weird meeting of the minds where like these two things like really slam together, and it's going to take someone like GW leaning hard into that, because like it feels like they have their thing, their heavy metal style of painting, which is fine. You can follow the directions, you can have a really good outcome, but it's also like it would be really cool to see them like have like intermediate advanced courses and things that like you could be like, or you could try this, or you could try this, or like I would love for them to lean a little harder onto those things, because I think as a group, miniature painters would be more inspired to try different things, and because like I was watching this like Gunpla dude today, just like tear a kit apart and just sculpt on it with like milliput and or what I assume
saw that.
milliput. Yeah, and I was just like, and he's like making it bigger, and I'm just like, how the hell? And he's doing this all without like measuring it. He's just doing it by eyesight, and then he paints it up, and it has this kind of like cell shaded like battle damage thing. I'm like, this is inspiring, and I want to see more miniatures done like this, in like how Epic Duck does his comic book style, but like I want to see it on like a bigger scale. Like I was also feverish, so like to me I was just like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's the one. I think I saw this. It was like 3 SD, the super deformed kits. Was that right? And it's kind of like a scene with, like, one of them has a bazooka that's mid explosion. It was so cool. I think that's the one that you're talking about. If not, I saw something totally similar, and it was just so cool because he was building up the different fins and things. I'm like, oh, that's a really cool use of milliput because it turns hard, and then you can sand it down, and a bit of backing with some plastic hard and all these simple tools. I'm like, oh, these are just great ideas that I know I could totally reuse on what I do with my miniatures.
Well, and the weird thing is like I didn't realize how many people were looking at Gunpla stuff on YouTube. Like I look at Uncle Adam and Tabletop Minions and Miniac and Email with Squidmar, and you're like, you look at those numbers, 160,000 people follow them. Like some of these Gunpla people like put them like the wargaming people to shame, and I'm like, there's something happening here that we should pay a little bit more attention to this.
Oh
like
my
as a
God.
community, I think there's one more to learn, but also two, like a broader appeal that we're totally missing, because like there's so many cool things from miniature wargaming to like scale modeling. Like they cross, like it should be something that I think is celebrated and explored more, instead of being like walled gardens, which like maybe that's a future for Twitch. Maybe we'll see more blending of the minds in that way.
I hope so, because it's just the more it happens, the more we get cross skills and things like that. And because I think one of the things that's led up to this is that traditionally miniatures have been kind of like, let's reproduce something historical and accurate, like in a war scenario, or like a diorama or something, like a nativity scene, or a sculpture for, like even when churches commissioned things back in the Renaissance, it was something.
Sure.
Something realistic. And now you see people doing things that are more like a pop culture sort of thing. Like I fully admit, like I draw stuff that's inspired by cartoons and weird stuff and music and things, just because I don't want to draw. I don't necessarily want to paint things that are realistic all the time. I want to get really weird with it. And I think that's kind of exploded what we've done, because now the medium's turned from, I want to make something that looks realistic, to I want to paint a tiny little demon that's exploding out of another dude, right? So that's what I want to do today. That's my happy little tree.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that people paying attention to this hobby, especially since coronavirus, has made people look at the hobby very differently, and a more holistic aspect of their hobby, is they're like, well, if I can't play, let's do these things that I haven't done. Like, I think that that's the stuff that's inspiring people. You know, when you're watching like James Wapple hit stuff with oil paints, and he's just like blazing through these huge models, and you're just like, how the hell is he doing this? And you know, it's just like, it's fascinating to be able to like be on the ground floor of it, because it feels new. Like, everything about it feels new right now.
Yeah, but I think it feels new because people are excited about it, and that's a big thing. Like, they've got the time to focus on it because whatever reason they're trying to make the best of their time. So hey, screw it, I'll do some self improvement, and I really consider like any sort of craft or hobby, you know, whatever it is, which I encourage, something creative. Get something creative in your life. It doesn't matter what kind of creativity it is. Just get something creative, because it makes you feel better. It just makes you feel better creating something. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be the best. It just has to be something.
Yeah.
And if you get value out of it, that's awesome. And yeah, people are really getting back to that. And I think that's been a big thing on YouTube. I watch woodworking all the time. I barely know how to use a lot of tools. I'm just like, I'm just kind of barely learning things, but I've learned things, which is really cool. Because now I'm like, oh yeah, I know how to take care of this problem. I learned that from Essential Craftsman, or you know, something like that. Like, this is awesome. This is great.
Well, and especially like setting up desks and things, like, you know, just organizing your space. Like, the woodworkers, that is what almost all their videos are, is like, let me micromanage the space to the nth degree. It's so fun watching it.
Yeah, all this back here. That's,
dude,
I'm literally like vertical. I've got all my paint stacked up, and then all my supplies like in spot. Like, when I'm streaming, I just switch between airbrushing, the traditional brushing, to like, I need to like throw it on a base. I've got like prepped bases and everything. It's just all like within arm's reach. It feels really good. And I'm like, it took me years to get to this point, but it's my space. It's so good,
dude,
man.
I'm envious. I'm super envious of it, because like, yeah, mine was getting good, and then I ruined it when I moved into the attic. In the murder basement, RIP, just can't have a computer. The attic is not really set up to like have it. You know, I've got this like pitched ceiling right here, which just ruins any verticality I have.
Which I've got a little bit of a pitch ceiling in here, which kind of it limits my space for just slightly. So I got to take that in mind. But the sad thing is this desk. I love old and new materials. So this desk is something I've had for 15 plus years now, and it will never leave this room. It has moved its last time. It is being held together by probably like 50-ish wood screws that I've just like reinforced it with, and then all the stuff that I've done to it is terrifying. So it's like, it's solid, but like if I take it apart, it will never come back together again. Like, it's one of those kind of situations. It's just like, this is where it will live, and I've gotten plenty of use out of this $100 special. You know, it's like the equipment on it is worth way more than the desk. Like, it's like, I shouldn't trust this desk at this point, but I do.
You know, I mean, wood glue and screws will get you down the road very far, man. Like, you would be like, half of my shop, my shop's 50 years old, and when they were like expanding in like the 70s, they just like took old doors and weird stuff like that and like screwed them into like 2x4s, and so like my like workbenches are like barely held together, and it's just so funny because like we've only had like one really horrible accident where one of them just like crumbled. Like, they're pretty robust, but like when you like take all the like the craft paper off and you look at it, you're like, oh my god, I cannot believe that this is what I'm working on.
Oh man.
So Reiner, man, how long have you been on Twitch? When did Twitch become the thing for you?
November 25th, 2016.
Wow. Okay. So you've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, just about 3.5 years. Yeah, just over 3.5 years now. So I'll be doing my fourth year anniversary this November. So yeah, surprisingly long time. I've seen a lot of people come and go. So it's been kind of weird because I've been thinking about it in the last year and a half since my son's come into the picture. It's time has gotten slippery. So I'm like, you know, it's like there's been times where I've had to take a little bit more of a break from it, like more recently, but I'm getting back solid into the swing of things now that he's getting just a little bit older and a little bit easier to take care of. And
nice.
Yeah, it's I'm just like, wow, these people are still here. Or, oh, what happened to such and such? Or like, hey, such and such is back. Like, hey, it's been some time. I've had a lot of that recently, which is kind of cool. Which I've also had a lot of, holy crap, you're still streaming. I'm like, yeah, I'm still here. I'm
Yep.
still trying to get all my army painted. I'm not done. Not done. Not done.
So how have things changed from Twitch then versus Twitch now? Because I didn't pay any attention to Twitch as a hobby space, because I basically thought it was just for video games or for like, cam girls trying to like get their start. Like it didn't, the hobby thing didn't really make any sense to me at all. And so like, and because like gamers are not exactly the most stable people, like it just felt a little toxic and a little too ego driven. So I just avoided it until like really earlier this year, like for the last 3 or 4 months. I has been really like I just missed all of that.
It's interesting because yeah, I kind of avoided Twitch for the same reason, because I just wasn't interested in watching a whole lot of people play video games. Like there's a couple of content creators that I enjoy that I can watch, but it's usually kind of edited, some stuff like that. And I found some streamers that I enjoy watching video games now too. But then I found a couple of people on YouTube, notably Next Level Painting. I found him on YouTube and then started watching him on Twitch. So it's like, okay, cool. And, I started watching along, and then I'm like started chatting because the chat wasn't horribly toxic like I was concerned about. It's like
Right.
I've had some bad experiences just in general with the gaming communities before in person. So I was always kind of a little bit leery about it, especially, hey, you're on the internet. Things can
Right.
get kind of rowdy. You never know.
Yeah.
But no, I had a great time, and I found a lot of other streams and things like that. And that's when eventually my wife actually wanted to stream, and she's like, you should stream. So I was like, okay.
Okay.
And so I did. So probably it's gotten a lot easier to access, like from a technology aspect.
Sure.
And the communities have stayed pretty consistent as far as how accepting they are. I think there's been drama. I mean, people are people, and egos clash, and there are egos, and there are people that will get in arguments with each other. But for the most part, they've all solved their issues pretty amicably, and nobody's really nasty with each other. And like you mentioned earlier, the tide rises. So most people, whether or not they've been here for a long time or a short time, they all try to support each other, which is really cool and really encouraging. And I try to do the same because I like seeing people succeed. The more people succeed, the better, because then they're going to tell friends, and those friends will tell friends, and those friends will tell friends. And that's the thing, is Twitch's creative sector is still a very small part, and that's probably another thing that's kind of changed, but not really, is the amount of people that have been a part of this. It's grown, but it hasn't grown like the rest of Twitch has grown either. But they're very loyal people that come by every week. Like me, it was just week after week after week, I'd come watch my streams, and that's really important to me, because it's really cool seeing those same people again. So I really appreciate that. But it's always cool seeing somebody else kind of find it like yourself, and you're like, I didn't realize what this was. Let me get into it and let me see what it's about. And then you meet 10 or 12 different people that you share interests with, different streams, and you may. I tell people, hey, go tell your friends about me, and even if they don't like me, maybe they'll find somebody else that they like watching. That's cool too.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's all I want. Like, watch one of my friends. That's cool. Watch one of my acquaintances that I barely know. That's awesome, because that's adding to our community. That's adding to the discussion. You're adding ideas and just a difference of opinion and your own view on things, which is always good when you're in an art kind of based community. You want those different ideas.
Well, and especially when like they're on somebody else's stream and you raid into somebody else's stream, you're like, oh wow, this is like incredible. Like, I one day, Sam Lenz, I was, on there, and he raided into Giggling Geekette, and I was just like, what is happening? I just went from like speed metal, like loud and obnoxious Sam Lenz being like the character Sam Lenz, which is so fun. And then you have like this really chill, like super ASMR style, like painting stream. I was like, it was like hitting a brick wall. I was like, whoa. And then I just sat and watched it. And I just watched like quietly. And it was like so weird. Like it was like, that Adam Sandler movie, anger management. I had that goose fra ba movement. I was like, whoa, whoa, this
Yeah.
is cool. And I just like sat and watched, and like now it's a stream that whenever I get a chance, like I'll hop on, and like I was watching Mocha the other day, and she got rated by Reaper Minis that brought 400 people onto her stream,
Which
and it
is
was
another
just
cool thing. Like the communities that the manufacturers have too. They're also getting involved with us because not only are they bringing in people, but they're also opening up to like streamers and viewers that are already here and going, "Hey, what can we do for you?" Which
yeah.
is awesome.
Yeah, it's I'm not used to it. I'm not used to
No,
this
me either.
level of support. Like in the music world, it is not like this. Like
Mhm.
this is it's touching, and it's something that when I try to explain it to people that aren't from like our hobby, like it's kind of lost on them. I'm just like, no, you just have to show up. Just show up,
I
hang
don't
out.
think we're operating under a famine mentality. Like there are people streaming. Here's probably one thing that has changed. There's never a point where there's nobody streaming painting at this point. It's very
Right.
rare. When I first started, there would be gaps, and we would be in Discords going, "Hey, is anybody painting, or anybody want to turn on their camera and get going?" Like, there's just nobody painting right now, and we'd fill it. There'd be other art streams going on, but not miniature painting. But so we do that. But yeah, it's crazy because we're not operating under that mentality that there's so many gigs, there's so many shows, there's so many places to display your art or anything. We've all
Yeah.
got our own space, and people will go where they want to go. And we'll hustle each other on Instagram, we'll hustle each other on YouTube. It's like, hey, I love this guy's stuff, I love this lady's stuff, and just go check all this out. I love sharing people that have nothing to do with it. One of my inspirations is Sarah Art on YouTube. She does stencil work. It's all like urban stencil stuff, and that's what really got me inspired to do stencils. I learned a lot from her, and I try to encourage people. I'm like, go look at street artists. I bring stuff in from street artists when I do my airbrushing. It's a really cool medium.
Yeah.
So I love that whole aspect. I really I feel lucky that I avoided any sort of negativity in this community, because for what negativity that has crept in, people have just kind of said, no, we don't want it, just as a whole. Like, we know there are differences of opinions. There's people from all walks of life, all sorts of different opinions. We may not even, it's like if somebody had an opinion that I really didn't like, and it's like, you know what, let's just share our hobby. Let's just leave it at that, and let's be cordial. And for the most part, people are really awesome with each other. They're like, hey, that's cool. Let's hobby, and let's
Yeah.
bring it all together over that, which I really enjoy. So I've had my kind of rough spots in the hobby where I've seen some gross stuff in person and just had some bad spots. And have I been a toxic gamer in the past? I'm sure I have.
Sure.
And I want to improve that, because one of my big things is I hate the hater mentality. I've been around those people, and it got so bad where I hated a lot of things. I'm just like, I don't like this. Why does me liking something is so negative? And then I'm like,
Yeah.
oh well, I just don't have to let it be. And then I just don't take this out of my life. Just go, don't
Yeah.
be negative, and don't be around people who just want to be negative, and then it's not so negative anymore. It's crazy.
I think people like in our age group right now, and I think especially men, I think we've paid a lot of attention to like the changing tide, and I'm glad. Like it makes me really happy to have like really honest, vulnerable conversation with other men. Because like the machismo aspect of it seems to have like really disappeared. But like, we're all kind of on like our lifelong apology tour for like our predecessors, because they were like shitty and continue to be shitty from time to time when they like pop their heads back up. Like I've been hanging out in like the OSR D&D groups because like I don't really like 5th edition. It's not that it's bad. It just like I kind of like the old school sort of mentality where they just don't
Right.
tell you everything. Like I like the idea where the magic missile is like a sentence explanation of how it works instead of like a paragraph. Like
My old gamer group, they swear by 2nd edition. They one
Yeah.
of them is adamantly like, and he's almost at the point of like haterade in their editions, but he keeps it jovial at least. And I'm like, you know what? I love playing 2nd edition, but I also love playing a little bit of 3.5. Love
Right.
playing a little bit of 5 a little bit, but I also like Pathfinder now that I've tried that out too. So I try out all sorts of different things, and I give them a shot. But that's why we like World of Darkness too, because that's been our big jam. But that's the funny thing too, is like I've run so many games of World of Darkness where we just never throw dice. It's
Right.
just all acting. I love that about that. I love those kind of systems where it's just like, I don't need to roll dice because you're describing this or acting this out, or we're having a fun time. We're making a really cinematic moment. So that's been another really cool thing, because I count myself lucky because, like I mentioned, my wife's been a gamer, and I've met a lot of really cool people from all walks of life who've been gamers. Like even my original group, most of them were men, but we did have a couple of female friends that were a part of that group, and people kind of came and went, but we always had a really cool mix of people from, like, one of them was a firefighter, one of them was a steel worker who was a black belt, one of them was who did rodeo and then was a crane operator, one of them was a Marine at the time. I was just a dorky nerd. We came from all sorts of different kind of walks, so it was really interesting. And then my wife got involved, and we met friends and family, and it feels like a family thing too sometimes. So
Yeah.
it's like, hey, this is whoever, can they come along? Yeah, absolutely. So I've just and I've never said no to anybody. It's just like, if you're cool and you get along with everybody, come join us. Have a drink, have a good time, because that was half the thing, was just socializing. We'd spend 4 hours shooting the breeze, drinking a couple of adult beverages, and then maybe like 2 hours throwing dice and pretending we're wizards, right? So that's how it went, and that's really the aspect I enjoy, and I try to bring a lot of that to Twitch as well, because I just like sharing other people's hobby experience as well as
Sure.
mine, because I'm just like, you're watching me hobby. This is my hobby experience, so share with me, inspire me, and I'll try to help you as well.
Yeah, I think that is such an awesome mentality to have, and that's what I want out of this as well, and just get in it, let's have fun, let's support each other in this. That's so good. So a little bird named Anzig 138 reached out to me and said that you were August is your month. You are pushing to make partner. How are you how, what is that mental shift of getting to affiliate felt like a huge hurdle, just because you're like, I have to have 3 people watch me at any given time, and 50
Right.
people have to follow me. Now it seems like paltry numbers when you have to have 75 people watching you at any concurrent time on Twitch. That is a huge hurdle, and something that I've looked at that number and I'm been like, yeah, I'm not even thinking about that. I don't even understand
Right.
what that means to have that sort of followers. I'm thrilled when I can have 13 people at any given time. That makes me really happy. What where did the mental shift happen, and what are the things that you're doing to kind of to solidify that?
So, man, I've got kind of a torrid history with Twitch and partnership. Like you said, I've been doing this for some time.
Yeah.
And I've had a pretty consistent and very loyal follower base for a while. And I've previously pushed for partnership. I'm a part of a group called Triptych, along with Shoshi's Minis, Flickster, who's currently on hiatus, and Genuine Vision. And we all push towards partnership for our group. I'm kind of the last one in line right now, since Genuine finally made his partnership.
Yeah,
Congratulations
he just did
to
it.
him, which is
Yeah.
so huge, because he and I were in the same boat for a long time, working on it, because, well, it's tough, and even when you get there, the making sure you stay there long enough and prove to yourself that Twitch wants you, it's a whole other step. So it's not just the number either. It's kind of crazy. So there's still a person saying yes or no at the end of the lane. So I've actually made it and applied 3 times and failed 3 times before, and it burned me out. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it another shot. A lot of people have been encouraging, and a lot of people are saying, hey, I want to help you in any way I can. So I'm gonna try to catapult off that. I've got some other ideas. I've been working on YouTube videos recently. I'm gonna try implementing some subscriber goals to encourage people to kind of join me on that whole YouTube creation process, and also just to try to practice teaching more. My one of my goals is to teach at conventions and things like that. So
Nice.
take on more of that role. So that's where I'm focusing. I'm kind of spreading my message a little bit more, putting out the word. I know a lot of people have been waiting for me to say, hey, I'm giving it a shot again. So they're like, hey, yeah, sure, I'll come lurk, which is awesome, because a lot of people do. They're like, it's not a problem. I'll just open you up in a separate tab, make sure it keeps playing, whatever. I want to help you out.
Yeah. You just flashed. I think that you're fine. Your battery isn't dying, is it?
Shouldn't be. I should be plugged in. Hopefully
Okay,
not.
good.
Yeah, making sure my cable's in tight here.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Starts giving me guff. We'll
Yeah.
figure something out.
Hey, it did it really early on when we first were on, and then it didn't do it for an hour. So whatever.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's the idle thing. The GoPro kind of gives me weird anxiety from time to time.
Dude, I tried doing all my YouTube videos with a GoPro, and after like a week of fighting with it, I just sent it back. I was like, nah, this is not it's not going. So what are the like did they give you any insight in why you weren't picked before? Like, because for like Sam Lynn said that he's also tried doing it 3 times, and every single time he doesn't. But like Sam plays like copyrighted music all the time.
Right.
He pulls the whole kind of mature stream thing. Which I don't know if that is a thing that hurts him or not. I know that they kind of frown against some of that until you're pulling like real numbers, gamer numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if that's something that's there. But every time I've been on one of your streams, it's always been like really cool, really fun, very funny. You're very active. It's not just like you sitting there silently and then like when you're like at a local show with like the band plays and all the guys are in the back just kind of looking at you, like that sort of thing. It isn't that. Like it seems very fun and very active. So like, did they give you any indication on why you weren't accepted before?
Purely numbers. I was right under the numbers and not maintaining them well enough. And they're like, "Yep, you're just right under." And part of it was like, "Well, my average is this cool." Well, there's also a thing with they don't want people just saying, "Hey, rate in all these people," and they can just sit in there whether or not they're actually doing anything or not. They want active viewers. So part of the thing is like if you get rated or hosted into somebody, it has a little URL thing at the end of the URL that says, "Hey, I'm a rater." So you have to load back into that page to count for a quote unquote real view to like be
actual
an
view. Yeah.
So that's a thing that like we focused on, and a number of other people have focused on when they push for partnership, is making sure that their viewers that are coming over from raids and people that are coming over, it's like it's totally appreciated. We want you there and stuff. Can you please click on this link real quick just to make sure that you get counted, because that's super important.
Yeah, Captain Mad Love, like every time she gets raided, it's like she's like a Pavlovian response. She just like triggers this, like, go ahead and take that thing off and reload the thing so we can be here together. And I'm just like man, she has got it. She is
it's a big thing. So I'm gonna give it a shot. We're gonna have some prizes. We're gonna have some fun stuff. Like I said, bonus content and what have you. I don't want to just throw out prizes and stuff to you. I want to give out like some actual cool like extra stuff, because that's what I've been trying to do. The YouTube thing is brand new to me, and I've just been doing that this month, which has been fun because now I've got a crash course in editing video, and I'm starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with it.
It's it's a hard skill, man. Like to watch yourself like struggle through what you're trying to like show. Like, man, like I was really bad at it, and like the effort it took to make one good video, I was like, no.
Yeah, my wife started doing some stuff, so obviously again she's like, you should make some videos. I'm like, I've been talking about that for 2 years. I really should. You're guilting me into this. And she's like, yeah, just do some like time-lapse videos. I'm like, oh, that's totally cool. So I did a few and I dubbed over them. I'm like, all right, now I'm feeling more comfortable. And I've been practicing because I've been learning to put together like GIFs and memes and stuff for my stream just to get a little bit of experience. So I'm starting to put it to good use now. Dude, so that's the kind of stuff I'm trying to ramp up on. She's my muse. Totally my muse.
That enabler sort of mentality of like, you should do this. Like that.
I'm literally sitting here looking at her stuff, and I'm like, I feel so lazy. She's got 3 spinning wheels over here. She's been sewing on her sewing machine. She's got a like cart. Half of this stuff looks like medieval torture equipment. So it's like, what's it do? Tears apart hair and then puts it in straight lines. Like, geez, okay.
yeah, dude. Like I love all those tools. Like
it's really cool.
I have a friend whose grandpa was a taxidermist, and I've already like put dibs on his tools. I was like, hey, when he dies, you let me know. I want all of that.
I get a little jealous when I visit the dentist nowadays. I'm like, how much is that compressor? Like, I think I get that. There's like a used dental supply place somewhere in Kansas City apparently that you might be able to get some stuff from. But I'm also like, do I have to have a medical license for this stuff? Like, I have questions that I need to ask. I gotta check these out because I always get jealous of their equipment, like
Dude,
those picks and everything, and then that air stuff and that drill. Oh man, totally.
dude, a whole pneumatic setup would be so good for like everything that we have. My mom's a dentist, and she one time had to go to Lexington to pick up a chair. And so she flew into St. Louis and we drove to Lexington. And I spent like 4 hours. It was the longest day ever. But I spent like 4 hours going through a warehouse of old medical equipment. And I was just like, this is so badass.
That sounds like a blast.
Yeah.
I love those kind of warehouse deals where they're just like, yeah, we cleared out like these offices and these old like kitchens and stuff like that, and just go pouring over them. I remember there's a place in Kansas City that's an old. They just take in like old office equipment, including old computer equipment. So one of the guys I was working with was like, they have old server rack equipment down there. So we were looking at stuff that was pulled out of like some of the businesses that we've worked with like just a couple years ago, and they're like, yeah, we're just selling these old servers for like nothing. I'm like, wow, that was like a $3,000 server, and you want $100 for it? Sure. I'll take it.
Absolutely.
It just needs some processors. Whatever. I got a few laying around. I can get those for cheap too, because somebody else is throwing those out.
Right. That's awesome.
So yeah, those kind of places are really fun to go through.
So is the goal of like partnership to become like self-sufficient on streaming? Do you think you want to do it full time, that sort of idea, like content creation all the time, or do you think you'll always have a day gig in this?
Man, that's such a hard question. It's something I've kind of battled with a little bit. I definitely want it to become a bigger part of my life, and it already is. It's a part-time job for me. This is a business, so my wife and I both have these hobbies that have become like real businesses for us. And do I treat it like a business? Kinda. On paper, yeah. But this is still my fun time, and if I stop having fun with it, I'll stop doing this. Will it ever replace what I do for a living right now? I don't know, because even though it is an IT position, it's something that I get to be very creative on. I'm an architect technically, so I get to do the building and things like that. So that's also a creative aspect of what I do, and I don't necessarily want to lose that. So it may get to the point where my focus does shift to this full time. That'd be awesome, but I definitely want it to become a bigger part of my life. And fortunately for me, I can probably make this a bigger and bigger part of my life as my job progresses as well. So that's cool, and I feel really lucky and really blessed, and I want to share that with other people. Like I'm not out there to become like necessarily well, I am, but I'm not. You get what I mean. Famous enough.
Sure.
I want to be famous enough to make this cool and be able to provide something else back to people, because like the biggest kick I get is when people like message me and I'm like, hey, that really helped out. Thanks for the suggestion, or you got me to stream, or I haven't picked up a brush in 5 years and I figure I'd fuck around with some of my Warhammer minis tonight. I'd be like, that. Like I've had times where I've really teared up over that. I'm like, that is so cool. Like I've and so that be able to do that a little bit more and get a little bit more of that ego stroking, that would be nice.
Sure.
But well, that's the kind of cool stuff I get a kick out of. I get a kick out of inspiring people. So that's what it all boils down to.
Well, and you definitely have an inspiring stream. I would think every time I hop in, you're doing something different. You're rocking an airbrush, you're doing stencils, you're doing like working models, doing brush, like it's just like you just kind of are like a holistic painter, and I love that. Like it's just one of those that are like, what's Reiner doing today? I have no idea. Let's sit down, and like that's really, really fun and infectious. And again, like I get that in picture framing, where every single day it's something different and you can't really guess what it's going to be. And I'm glad that there are other places where people can actually get that same sort of thing, because it's hard to explain to someone how important that is, especially if you have like extroverted tendencies, like being able to have the community to talk to while doing something creative. It's unlike anything else. And
Yeah, it's so much. It's so helpful having someone to talk to while I paint, because previously my thing was I've been a long time podcast listener for long time. Just I'd sit and listen to podcasts and then switch it up with some music and then some podcasts, but I never really had anybody to interact with.
Yeah.
And then streaming just got me addicted on it. Like I am I don't consider myself an extrovert. I think I've leaned more that way as I've streamed, for sure. Like I said, I haven't really been deterred by crowds before, but I've never really wanted to like be in the center of attention or anything like that.
Sure.
But I really enjoy having somebody to talk to, and it's, even if there's 5 people there and one of them wants to talk, that's awesome. If there's 50 people there and none of them want to talk, that's cool. I'm going to talk too. It's just, I just need somebody to kind of bounce around with. And even if it's just playing around or joking around or talking about my my favorite anime of the week or something like that, that's great.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Well, we have been going on for quite a while now. And I really appreciate your time talking with me. And I really, good luck on the push for partnership. And if I can help out in any way, if I'm streaming and I see you on, I'll get the raid and we'll make stuff happen that way. But is there anything that you'd like to say to your viewers, to my viewers, to the new viewers, as this podcast just keeps on growing and growing, and the actual podcast version of it is like really taking off? It's a little embarrassing to put all the effort into YouTube videos, and the podcast version of it does very well for itself right now. Is there anything you want to say to the audience before we call it a night here?
I mean, really just going back to just get something creative in your life. If you haven't already, if you haven't found something that kind of gets you inspired, gets you pumped up, gets you excited to do something during the day, just find it, because that really improved my life more than I thought it would. Just having something that I could creatively do, and at the end of a day or a week or whatever, I can go, I made that. And I learned how to do something. That growth is just so addictive. So I really encourage people to find that. And whether that's through, somebody like us, who's gaming and painting miniatures, or maybe you find somebody who does really cool drawings or, watercolor, whatever it is, find it and just have fun with it. And that's the biggest part. Find something that feels good to do, and get away from life a little bit sometimes. And focus on that creative aspect. That's the biggest thing.
Man, I 100% agree with that. And I can't count the number of times that seeing a stupid monster on my workbench and I'm feeling bummed out, but after I've slapped some paint on this dumb little piece of plastic, I'm just like, oh my God, the world doesn't seem as hostile. I feel like I've exercised that part of my brain. Like, I'm with you 100%. Do something creative. It's good for you.
What is that quote from Billy Madison? It's like, Billy, what is that? It's a blue duck. It's like, why'd you paint the duck blue? And
I've always wanted to see a blue duck. I know.
Yeah. That's how I feel about it. I'm like, you know what? That right there just kind of sums out how I feel about it. Like, you want to see a blue duck? Make a blue duck happen.
Yep. I think that again, you can't ruin it. You literally can't ruin any of this stuff unless if you light it on fire somehow, which if you can
that might be
fun
too. Who knows?
Yeah. Dude, I've all of my
safety
business
first.
Partner, safety first. Yes. My business partner has a master's in studio sculpture, and my wife has a bachelor's in art history with a under in sculpture. And so it's so fun, the things that they do, when they're being creative, because they so much of what they do is destroying. I'm like, hell yeah. It's so fun. Reiner, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate your stream. It's been good to get to know you. I'm glad that we are close. The little birdie also says that it's an equal distance from his house to your house as it is from my house to your house. So there might be a Kansas City hangout in your future if you are ready to hang out with a bunch of old school metal heads and paint minis for like some weekend. Make a YouTube video out of it or something.
Oh man, that sounds terrible. Why would I want to do
Horrible.
that? Oh no. It's almost like I try to do that all the time.
Well, right on, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And
Absolutely.
I'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of Hobby Time in the Murder Basement. I so appreciate your support. If you want to see more hobby content, hop on over to twitch.tv/Heath Aldrich to see all of your fun hobby content streaming whenever I get a free chance. If you like listening to these episodes in more of a podcast form, I should be on all of your favorite podcasting apps. Make sure that you like and subscribe to me there. If you can, leave me a 5-star review. I'd really appreciate it. Have a nice rest of your day, and we'll be talking to you soon.